All right. Well, Rande Howell is both a licensed therapist and a performance coach. His work is grounded in the neurobiology of emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and accessing and developing hidden potentials that allow traders to redevelop the beliefs that they are projecting upon the markets. What he teaches is that emotions can be harnessed so that the traders engages effectively the stress and challenges found in trading. Well, his experiences include working with retail traders, proprietary traders, professional traders, portfolio managers, and fund managers. His publications have appeared in many venues, and he is the author of the book, Mindful Trading, Mastering Your Emotion and Inner Game. Well, without further ado, let's bring on Rande. Rande, good afternoon, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, sir. A very well-anticipated segment, a featured speaker here for our guest. This is Rande Howell, and very nice to have you back here with us, Rande.
Thank you very much. Just to be honest with you, I like you guys, and Eddie, you're the funnest guy to do stuff with that I've known. So, I mean, I just enjoy working with you. So there you go.
Yeah, likewise. Like you and Dolores, I mentioned Dolores yesterday. She's on top of my list of being the best boss lady that she gets it done. She gets it done.
She's a good compliment to me. Things would not nearly go down as easy and as logically and as systematically without her. I am deeply, I am both blessed and lucky to have her.
You are, sir. You are, and God bless you both. Well, folks, it's just a little after 12 o'clock. Now, the topic we're going to be talking about, Rande, and correct me if I'm wrong, the emotionally intelligent trader, mastering emotions and the mind for highly effective trading. And definitely you are the man to show us to the promised land here and shed some light on how we think. You know, Rande, a lot of the problems are, most of the problems, that's why I like having you here, is that the mind can play tricks on us when we don't realize it. When we're trading, all of a sudden we sort of veer off the path. And before you know it, we find out that, oh my goodness, what did I do? And we question ourselves. Now, you talk about the emotional intelligence, how to contain your emotions, mindfulness, developing hidden potentials. Now, this is all stuff that is going to get you to success. And we've had a lot of our traders that have dealt with Rande and his program, and I think I'm going to shut up and I'm just going to let you talk now. But it's very nice to have you here on a Friday. It's the cherry on top of the sundae. End the week on a very good note. So with Rande, the stage is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you very, very much. And yes, I am hoping that we are here to talk about the emotionally intelligent trader because that's what my presentation is. What I want to do is this, I want you to start asking, tell me something. Do I know how to trade? And for most of you, I hope the answer is yes. Do you have the knowledge of trading that if you were in a perfect place where there was no risk, could you in fact produce the kind of income and the win rate and the ratio of winners to losers that can propel you from being a struggling trader to being an adequate trader to being an experienced trader to being an expert trader? What I've discovered over the years is that most traders do know how to trade. The problem is they don't know themselves well enough. They don't understand emotion very well to a moment where they keep thinking that they can have freedom from emotion. There could be nothing further from the truth. There is no such thing as freedom from emotion. However, with the development of emotional intelligence, what you can have is freedom of emotion, which means you become the person who can use emotions to create a particular kind of mind that allows you to be in a zone that can really work with probability. That's what we're going to be discussing. And I only have one little piece of housekeeping, is that I hold questions toward the end, and Eddie here has the questions. We don't have the questions. You can type in questions as you come to them and stuff like that. We have just simply found over time that many of the questions that would be asked are covered in the presentation. So what we want to do is we want to start asking, well, what's the gap? What's the difference between the dream versus the reality of successful trading? Okay? There are a lot of people who have external knowledge of how to trade. They have the information. They can talk the talk. I mean, I guarantee it happens in the room, in the conversations room where you talk. Everybody can talk trading. And it's a great thing, really. It's an enjoyable topic. You can talk it, you can talk it, you can talk it. But then, the internal knowledge of the self that allows you to perform that knowledge under pressure, that, my friends, is emotional intelligence. And that's what we want to really look at today. Because otherwise, it's just like sand going between your fingers. You know it should be there. It should be right around the corner. But somehow it's there. And ultimately, what I've discovered, particularly about retail traders, is that they buy into the dream of trading. A lot of folks got downsized, and they decided, I don't want to go back to corporate. I don't want to do any of that stuff. What I want to do is I want to have financial freedom. At the same time, I want to have personal freedom. I've had people working for me. I don't want employees. What I want to be able to do is be able to learn this system to produce a reasonable income and then move off into the wonderful land of trading land, okay? It's so enticing, but the problem is you don't really see what you're up against. You see the tip of an iceberg. And practically everyone I know selling systems and trading and stuff like that, they tell you, look, you just do this system and you're going to make money, you're going to have a good time, and figure you're going to spend 2 or 3 years learning the system, and after that, you're going to be having it. And oh yes, leave your emotions at the door. And at the same time, what happens is that they get caught up in that. But the problem is that they really get bewitched. They start looking at those paper profits that they've been learning. They've been learning that methodology. They've been applying it to the simulation, their paper trading, and they have paper profits, and man, they are ready. They see the potential of that wealth generation. What they don't recognize is this, is that the moment you go live, you have entered a very strange new world that most likely you're very unprepared for. In fact, what most traders really discover is that the mind that they brought to trading is not, in fact, going to be the mind that's going to create success in trading. And they begin to get absolutely consumed by trading and the passion, and they don't see the drain that's occurring on their trading account. What's very typical for me, particularly with retail traders, is I will have traders who come in and they talk to me and they've already lost 50, 100, 150, 300, $500,000, $1 million. And they said, Randy, I had no idea that emotions, and that you had to get your head screwed on straight. I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for it to turn around. But eventually what happened is they had been mesmerized, and they didn't realize literally the danger that they were getting into until it was too late. They get consumed. So what you discover really quickly, one of the biggest enemies that you have to your evolution as a trader is the brain's tendency to keep you stuck in familiar ways. You keep holding on to. You see yourself doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again. And it's not the method. It's your head. It's your psychology. And yet at the same time, you still hit the flip switch and you keep doing it. But now it's years, and dollars and dollars and dollars. And yet, do you wake up? It's like it has a lock on you. You're locked into underperformance, okay? And you don't see that you need to give up old ways. You don't see that you need to break out of the comfort zone of literally the pattern you're in, okay? So what you're doing is you keep hitting your head over and over again. It reminds me of that joke, that little moron joke. Is that, why did little moron keep hitting himself in the head with a hammer? Punchline is, because it felt so good when he stopped. My promise to you is the power of primitive emotional learning It fixes perception. It's going to lock you in there because it feels safe to be in a familiar pattern. And when you go under pressure, okay, it is going to revert back to that primitive pattern, and it's going to hijack the very mind that you need for trading. That's what you're going to discover, okay? And I'm sure each of you has your own story that can talk about that. Particularly if you're here, we know that you've tried hard. You've looked into all sorts of things. You've tried all the magical fixes. I am sure that you have tried NLP. I'm sure you've done hypnotism. I'm sure you have done this brainwave stuff where you sync the brain. You have done the tapping. You have done the positive thinking. You have done the affirmations. And at the same time, under pressure, what you discover is you never pull the rabbit out of the hat. And the cheap fixes just wear out after a while. That's what we want to do is, well, why? Why is this happening? You know, I'm doing all the stuff that I learned that produced success in another time, in another place. I was able to force my will. I was able to make things happen. I was able to be good enough that I made so few mistakes that I could control outcome. Now I'm taking that same success formula, same mind, and I'm bringing it over here to trading, and it's not working. It's getting worse. Why is this? We're going to talk about that. This is when the trader, particularly if they've been lulled into this kind of like just this complacency, what you discover is this, is that capital and time are eroding. And what I actually encourage you to do is say, how much capital, how much time can I erode before I'm going to intentionally wake up and say, I need to work on my head. I know people, it was at $50,000. That's a good figure. I know people, it was at $200,000. The key is set the limit. Or if you're in the stop shelf type of trading thing where you're coming to the moment where you're looking to be able to say, okay, I'm going to start trading their money. How many times have you got to that moment where you're doing the stress test? You're actually taking the examination that would allow you into the group. And at the same time, you come up to that bar and you fall back and you see that even your time is eroding. That's what I want you to see, is that after you've done this a couple of times, what do you think is going to change? If you keep doing the same things over again, just better, doing the same things over again, better and better, you get the same result. Because ultimately, I'll put it to you this way. At a distance, trading really doesn't seem like any deal because the emotion's out there. Okay? It's caged. As long as you're not under stress, the stress of really risking capital, or the stress of performance, the emotion's caged. You really don't have to deal with it. But then, uncage that emotion. Sit there with real risk on the table, yours, or you're getting graded by somebody, okay? And all of a sudden notice that lion, that dangerous part of the cell, it's out of the cage, and it's up right in front of you, and suddenly it's a different animal. And all of a sudden performance goes out the window, even though you have the knowledge of how to do it. You have to ask the question, do I really want to increase my performance potential? Do I want to do that? Or do I want to stay in the same old ways? That's really a question. At first you say, of course I want to increase my performance. But if you take a look at your history, what you'll see is maybe not. Maybe you're comfortable in this rut, in this place. Most traders stay there, they burn their capital out, and they leave. That's the history of trading and retail stuff. And actually what you discover very quickly, it's on an instinctual level that you're going to have to overcome this fear of the unknown. Okay? You always want to be in control. Like two rams, you think about it, is literally the survival of the species depends on the strongest ram winning and getting all the babes to be able to generate into the future. The same thing, you have that powerful drive, particularly guys with their testosterone, and you're looking at an image right here that's a bunch of testosterone in 2 rams, is that guys with a bunch of testosterone, they're going to go in and they're going to want to win. And they want to make it happen. And what they do is they say, I am going to make a certain amount of money. I'm going to make that happen. What they fail to ask is this, is that, what kind of mind do I need to have? How do I need to perform in order to achieve that outcome goal? Because ultimately, trading is not about the outcome goal. You can have goals all you want, but when you're trading, you have to have performance goals that sink you in to being able to trade in the moment, not in the future. And trading in the future is where most people, that's the big mistake that people have. Okay? You want to avoid that. And what happens is fear of the unknown, of the short-term stuff, shapes the very psychology that you bring to trading. Okay? That reactiveness that you have is played out every time there's capital at risk. And suddenly the survival instincts trump reason. Poof. Like just poof, just like that. Gone with the wind. And if you don't believe it, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this theory and let's put it into focus, okay? How many people in here have problems with hesitation at entry? How many people just want more and more confirmation, and when they finally have the confirmation that would have them be able to predict outcome, the trade's gone. Meanwhile, the guy who is calling out the trades has already been in, he's been out, and you're still looking for confirmation. There you go. There's that fear of the unknown, and that the role that it plays for you is that of hesitation. It keeps you out. And remember this. Fear will trump logic every time. You can't be a cold-blooded killer in trading until you've been able to calm the fear down. Not make it go away. It doesn't go away, but you can transform it from fear into concern, and you can begin to see that, okay, I know that I'm dealing with the unknown here. I know that I can't control outcome. But what I do know is this. I know that if I emotionally intelligently use my emotions, I know that fear is not the emotion to perform from. In fact, in my courses, what you're taught is that discipline and partiality are the 2 emotions that you're striving to trade from. That's the zone. That's the place where you're flowing with the trade. So there's that part. How many of you get out of early to the fear of losing the money that you do have? This is called scarcity thinking, okay? You know, you've been in it, you've gotten to the trade, it's gone up and down, it's gone sideways on you, it's gone red on you, and suddenly it finally pops up into the black. You know, you've got it there, you can see up at the top of the mountain where your target is. It's actually on a molehill, but by the way, by your thinking from fear, has that molehill as a mountain. And you go, I need to take what I've got right now before it's taken away from me. And you take your profits, and you make enough money to pay your broker. Okay? And you stay marginally profitable. But what you've left out of this fear of short-term fear of the unknown, what you've done is you've sacrificed the future because you could not perform in the moment from the right set of emotions that allow you to have a mind that manages uncertainty. Okay? But then let's take one more example just to let you know how all this stuff works. Think about revenge trading. You take a hit, okay? And all of a sudden, that's not fair. I'm going to get you back. I need to get my money back. Oh my God, I'm supposed to be making $1,000 a day, $200 a day, whatever. I need to get that back. I am going to do it. And all of a sudden it goes from fear to anger, and you're attacking the threat. You're going to attack the markets as if the markets can be attacked, okay? As if they care. And then you jump in, and now suddenly rational thoughts come on again. And you get all juked up. And when the smoke clears, you've also cleared your trading account. And it was all because I had to make a certain amount of money today. I didn't get it, so now I've got to make it up. Do you see how the short-term circuits overwhelm logic that's needed to produce consistent winning in game theory? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking game theory here. We're talking about building the mind that can manage game theory. And friends, this is where literally a commitment to building your emotional intelligence has to start. It's the missing edge between the performance you're right now and the performance that you can be doing under pressure. As you begin to learn emotional intelligence, literally what makes you tick, and being able to say, you know something, I know that it's natural for me to have fear of the unknown. It's instinctual. I know that my psychology from my family, from my culture, from the whole psychology of winning stuff, has me doing everything it can to win short term. And yet at the same time, when I try to win short term, I end up failing. I stay behind the bars. And maybe there's another way of doing this. Maybe there's a way that we have to be able to master our instinctual nature to avoid threat or to chase prey, chase trades, and to morph it and build it into something new. This is emotional intelligence, my friend. This is when you let the prisoner out of the jail, and all of a sudden you take the animal part of you, okay? You know what makes you tick, under pressure in particular, and you change it. Suddenly you have primitive reactive survival programming being cooled down, because otherwise it will hijack rational mind needed for consistent trading. You know, this morning it's interesting is my wife and I live in a rural area near Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have these big, huge windows that look around into the forest around us, and our dog started profoundly barking, and he's an 80-pound dog, so when he barks, he really lets you know he's barking. And we go to these big panel windows, and we look outside, and there are 6 deer, basically in our side yard. And the dog's going nuts. Buddy is going nuts. And what happens is I look and say, Buddy, come on. And he runs through the door, and I let him out, and he's like a streak. I go to the windows and watch him, and these 6 deer just explode and are almost always gone, and Buddy's after him. He is chasing the trade. He is instinctively built to chase the trade. Okay? Most winners do that. Most people who've had success as alphas in corporate and in business come into thinking the reason I've been successful is that I can make things happen. I take action. I have to be doing something to be doing something. I have to be trading to be trading. And what they don't recognize is that that's instinctual biological function. That's the dog chasing. What we need to do is we need to move from the way African lions hunt. They hunt by assault. Okay, they assault. They don't ambush. They actually assault, and they do it in tag team. And there's a lot of injury. Okay, that's an alpha. That's an apex predator built for the plains of Africa. Then you take an animal like the mountain lion. Okay, the puma. And what you discover is it's built to hunt in the forest. What it does is it climbs trees or rock outcroppings, sits very carefully on a limb 10, 12 feet high, and waits for the setup. Sounds like trading, doesn't it? Its setup is the deer. It knows the deer's habits. It knows that it can see where the deer comes. So it waits very patiently for the deer to show up. And when it's there, it strikes. And what's interesting is the way the puma attacks. It doesn't try to suffocate. It doesn't try to maul. It simply comes down and snaps the neck of the deer, and it falls to the ground in a half a second, dead. There is no chase. There is none of that. And if it misses the deer is gone, and the puma goes and starts the game over again. He knows the setup. He knows it works. There's very little injury. Yet, his ambush style of hunting is based on patience, not taking action. This is what happens. This is when you realize that you can shift what it is to hunt for the trade. You're shifting from going after the trade to waiting patiently for the trade. That's the trick. That's the emotional intelligence. And it has to be learned. You just can't read it and say, aha, I got it. You have to rewire the belief system. You have to take away and cool down the instinctual reaction, excitatory things. That's what you've got to do. So the first thing you really have to tame the beast of emotion. That's the first thing. And to do that, you're going to have to learn how to literally understand what an emotion is and what it is not. First of all, emotions are not psychological. They are biological. They take over psychology. Okay? That's what you need to understand. And your quality of thinking is dependent upon the emotions present that bring forth your mind. All thinking is emotional state dependent. Once you grasp this, you begin to really realize that you have to be able to learn how to manage your emotions, or you don't have a prayer of a chance. No matter how manly you are, no matter how much testosterone you have in you, it becomes dangerous to you. That's why women, on average, can easily become better traders than men, because they don't have to deal with this testosterone problem that has men jumping into things they shouldn't be in, taking too much risk. Women just sit back and manage the house, and they take the money. They know how to manage budgets well. So you're looking at that. You know you got to tame this beast, and you go, wow. What that really means is you have to really start controlling emotions like euphoria, thinking that you can fly. You know, the whale of J.P. Morgan, the guy who evaporated $2 billion, his problem is that their risk manager was gone from that unit for a while, and his euphoria, his ability to sustain risk got so high, so much testosterone was in him, that he started making very bad risk management decisions. And before you knew it, he never even knew he was in emotion. And yet he was so compromised, he couldn't make trading decisions adequately. You can't have that, but what happens, though, by understanding gravity, you can learn how to fly by using the systems around you. That's the whole key. It's the same with emotions and trading, okay? It's the whole key is this. You learn to manage emotions to your advantage by understanding the elements of an emotion, okay? I was teaching at a hedge fund on Wall Street several weeks ago, Point 72. And it's interesting as we were going in, and they were talking about how they get stressed out and how they start making really bad decisions. And, they're sitting there watching their screens, and, they're watching the volatility, and they're making all these weird decisions about being in and out of trades and in and out of positions and stuff like that. And they never realized that they had been consumed by emotion. So what we started doing is we started looking for markers of an emotion. But the first thing they had to learn is that an emotion is any disruption to a standard sensorial pattern that the brain has already created. Okay, that's the first thing. A change in status quo. Okay, that's what an emotion is. An emotion is going to appear. Remember, it's biological action potential. And so it shows up. And the first thing that an emotion is going to do is start arousing. It's going to rev up. Like with these portfolio managers, what they were doing, they were sitting there and recognizing there was an enormous amount of stress in their body. And one said, oh, my God, my leg's just going like this all the time, that bouncy leg thing. What they're doing is they're looking at the arousal of an emotion that they never understood that as an emotion. By understanding that that is an emotion, that's the biology of the emotion going on, they were able to observe it and start interrupting it so that the arousal didn't keep revving, and then suddenly a switch happens, and it's no longer arousing. It's now a feeling that is pulsing through the bloodstream and taking over the mind. Suddenly cortisol is running through the system, and that's when the stress happens. That's when the tension happens. That's when the tapping the legs happens. The cortisol's there. Or if you're a binge trader or an overtrader, the euphoria is there. Okay, they're going, oh my God, I need to interrupt that. Boy, with this I can stop the emotion from just absolutely sabotaging it. Yes. But it's more than that, though. Once an emotion cranks up, once it's flooding through, it's going to tell you what to do. It's going to have you either avoiding, attacking, or approaching. Fight, flight response is very dangerous in trading, because what happens is your heart starts accelerating, and somewhere around 75 beats per minute, it starts activating the fight-flight response. When that happens, suddenly your motivation, you're going to make a decision. Not you, your organism is going to be making a decision to either attack the source of the threat or flee, avoid the threat. There's your revenge trading, and there's your avoidance trading, and there's your scarcity thinking. So you're looking at that and going, oh my God, but there's this other section over here called approach. That's what you want. You want the curiosity. You want the alertness. You want the focus. You want the readiness, like the puma in the tree, okay? And then strike. To do that, you have to get at the meaning of the belief within it. And literally what we're doing in my business, working with performance, what we're doing is we're recognizing this, is that your emotions and the meaning, the belief behind that emotion is revealed in your trading account. If the beliefs that you're projecting onto the markets are accurate enough, you're going to see growth in your equity. If your beliefs about your ability to manage uncertainty are like, oh my God, I'm going to be inadequate, I don't have enough of it, it's going to be revealed by stagnancy or losses over time. And what you're doing is you've got to find the belief, really, the real belief that's driving performance. Okay? And those beliefs will be about your adequacy, your mattering, your worth, your sense of power, every time. And every trader I know, when I first start working with them, are avoiding that like the plague. But that is the place where you have to go. If you want to become the expert trader, you have to fearlessly turn toward your fears. And you have to realize that they're your teachers. And that the truth is that you can change belief. You can actually see the structure of the belief. And that's what we're going. The other is predisposition. And that's far beyond my pay grade. That is the genetics. Some people are just born very nervous people. Some people are born with a tolerance for risk. They're born that way. And, obviously tolerance for risk is a good thing to have in trading if it is well constructed tolerance. So here we go. Now what we're doing is saying, how do you go about managing in emotional intelligence? You want to be able to manage the physiology of the emotion. That's the first thing. Okay? And you have to get it is that arousal, feeling, and motivation are rarely recognized and managed, okay, which sets up the wipeout. And yet, just like these guys at point 72 I was talking about, once they got it, oh my God, it's sitting there for everybody to see if you want to see it. And these are highly motivated people, okay? So what they're doing is okay, I know that I can disrupt that, okay? And I can see now how I can not get ambushed by the emotion. I can actually, now that I have a better understanding of what emotion is and mechanically how to calm an emotion, I know how to stay more sane in my decision making in the midst of uncertainty. But in emotional intelligence, that's the beginning. You have some intelligence, you have to some relearning about emotions. But ultimately, emotional regulation becomes the first big gigantic leap. You have to tame the emotional beast. You can't allow it to get to the moment where it absolutely sweeps you away into crazy thinking. How many of you have gone into trading and you've been doing this stuff and everything seemed okay and it just went wild, crazy, and then at the end of the day you look back and go, what in the world happened? That's the emotional beast. You wake up from the emotional beast and you go, what was I thinking? Well, you were thinking, but you were not thinking from an appropriate set of emotions that allowed you to maintain calm in the midst of uncertainty. Fortunately, breath and tension, muscle tension, can be used to curb and manage the intensity of an emotion. All emotions have a signature both of breath and of tension that are the arousal component of that emotion that you need to become an expert at observing in yourself. A lot of the guys I work with either are watching videos of themselves or having a mirror to watch it themselves because they're looking for the markers that show them that things aren't right. I can see the emotion's been triggered. I need to calm it down now and reorganize myself before it gets out of hand. Most traders only start trying to deal with emotion once it's out of hand. So with breath and tension, you can calm the emotion down, because the emotion being biological, like for instance, fear requires a lot of tension. It's preparing the body to flee or fight. And it has a particular breath signature. Usually you are breathing with the very, very top part of your lungs, or you're not breathing at all, cutting off oxygen supply to brain, which you need, and reverting all the energy down into the muscles. You're already cooked, okay? This is what emotional regulation will do. Emotional regulation by itself will not solve the problem. However, without learning to regulate the emotion, you never get to the mind. And when you get to the door of the mind, you have to figure out how the heck am I going to look inside the mind? I haven't done a very good job of that. This is where mindfulness really comes in, and you bet I teach it. Mindfulness is not by itself the big, huge kona, but what happens within emotional intelligence, you learn to observe yourself. You learn to observe the emotional nature that you're in, and to see what's behind the emotions. Look at the beliefs behind it. And suddenly you discover this, that you do not have beliefs, that you do not have thoughts. They're having you, and they're historical in nature, and they're happening like as a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the observing self within you has been fast asleep and fused to a particular identity that you brought into trading that's ineffective for trading. But with mindfulness, that's where it's cool. You get to the door of the mind, and you can look in and you can start observing far the thoughts in the mind. And this is when it becomes really interesting. And what you discover is the mind and the brain are inseparable. The neuroscience of brain has it this way. There are emotional programs that are in rival with one another. They're a community of rival programs, and based on circumstance, based on family dynamics, based on culture, will organize you into a particular observer. And you think that's reality you're looking at, when in fact all it is the way the brain has encoded experience. It has created an interpretation, a visual simulation of the markets, of life. And you think that's the truth. It's not. It's a virtual simulation, and you're measuring its effectiveness through the trading account. But what you realize is, okay, the brain is composed of a community of rival programs. When it becomes mind, all this wonderful thinking that we're doing right now, the mind becomes a committee of the mind, okay, where you begin to realize that there are rival programs that now have been given voice as thought in the mind, and the observer, when you wake it up, you start recognizing, oh my God, it's a mess in here. It's totally disorganized. It's at war with itself. The CEO, you, have been asleep at the wheel, and you need to wake up. That's mindfulness, friends. And you begin to realize that, what? There are some problems going on here. There are some problems going on here, and what you discover first is this, is that within you are two very different courses. One is a highly destructive part of the self. The other is a highly constructive part, and there's a war going on between them, okay? And you have not been privy to it, okay? The first thing you do with this mindfulness is you learn to observe the inner critic and the adapted self, your fear. You begin to realize, oh my God, my observer has been so asleep, so fused to this notion that this is what you've been seeing through. You've been seeing through the criticism, the judgments of this inner critic part of yourself that wants to really destroy you. And you have been seeing through what I call the orphan's viewpoint, the fear, okay? And what you see is everybody else has been asleep. This is what's been driving your trading. And now it's time to wake it up, because this is just one in this community of rival programs that have been given form as thought in the committee of the mind. These are just two committee members. What we're looking for is more, okay? this is where you begin to realize that you're living in a virtual simulation. Okay? Truly what's happening is your brain is taking in sensorial modalities, the data from the sensorial modalities of your senses. It's organizing it into literally a virtual simulation based on your beliefs. I want you to hear this, about your ability to manage uncertainty. Okay? That's what you're projecting onto the markets. You're not seeing the markets, you're projecting and creating the markets based on those beliefs. And you're getting a feedback loop in your trading account. That's how you measure how effective your virtual simulation is. This is where you start rooting it out and realizing, oh my God, this is not me. This is an organization that has fooled me as me, that is organized around fear of the unknown. I want you to hear that. Organized around fear of the unknown, either having to conquer it or avoid it, when in fact I need to change the mind that I'm actually bringing. Because most of the time, traders hide from their beliefs rather than examine them. This is why the trader sits and doing the same stupid things over and over again. This is the reason the trader keeps losing money, keeps losing money, keeps losing money. And then all of a sudden, golly, he didn't have any more money. And he says, well, golly, I need to do something. Oh, it's been all in my head. It's my head that's wrong. You don't recognize, it's likely until it's too late, that it's your head that needs to change. This is the big thing that I see with traders. Traders who look at it and say, you know something, I'm going to spend $50,000 on my education. When it gets past that, and that's not with courses and that's with losses. And after that, I'm going to start doing something about it. Because at that particular time, I know darn well it's not the systems I'm using, it's me. And I need to change me to be able to drive what I know is a successful system. So instead of hiding in the box, what you're doing is using that observer to look in and saying, man, I need to reorganize this committee of the mind. It's just absolutely not, it's not working. This is when it becomes interesting. And how do you go about changing those beliefs? Okay? What I want to tell you this is that real change is not a technique. I get that all the time. They want to, hey, Randy, what's the technique? What is the secret knowledge that you have that if I learn that knowledge, just give me the word and I'll know that everything's going to change. They don't recognize that this is a belief structure that is wired into circuitry. And that circuitry, once established, is enormously resistant to change. It will delude you into believing all sorts of things, blaming all sorts of things other than taking responsibility for your performances. That is it, okay? And what you're doing, in my work, what I'm doing, one of the first things I'm doing is getting you to find your inherent worth so that suddenly your performances become only performances, because most traders, retail traders I know, are still trying to prove to someone who's already dead that they matter or that they're adequate. And what we're trying to do is free ourselves from that identity and create a very different identity that allows us just simply to perform. And we know that we can't control the outcome, but we can control the performance that we're in. That's the power. When we do this, we begin to understand how to use emotion to construct a very different mind than the mind that we brought to trading. Okay? You've got it regulated, you've got it understood, and suddenly emotion becomes the medium. And you become the archetype of rebuilding the mind for peak performance in trading. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, because suddenly what you have been avoiding, you're now using as the teacher. The emotion is really teaching you about your beliefs that lay underneath your performances. Okay? It's telling you about your beliefs about your worth, your beliefs about your mattering, your beliefs about your adequacy, your beliefs about your powerfulness or lack of power. That's what it's really teaching you. And to be honest with you, if you're losing and know how to trade, these are the 4 self-limiting beliefs that you're going to have to reconstruct. Fortunately, you can. What we can learn to do, and this is so cool, is that we can change the very script behind the drama of your performances. In the same way that fear, judgment are part of the committee of the mind, they're part of literally the biology of the brain. So are discipline, so are courage, so are self-compassion and partiality. And with awareness, you can be the director. In this picture of George Washington, if you think about it, George Washington has every reason to be humbling and just groveling in fear. He has a starving army. They're in rags. They don't have very many guns. They're ready to bolt and leave and go back home. They're poorly managed. He hasn't won too many of the battles. And yet, here he is. He has the faith. He has the discipline to stay organized, and through him to keep these desperate men from 12 colonies together in their head to beat the greatest power of the time. And out of that, what happens is that everybody has experiences. And what happens with the way I teach, I do not teach affirmations and visualizations and cheap NLP type tricks. What I do is I'm having you go into memory of performances in other areas, and I'm having us recognize a neurofact. You're recognizing that there is no such thing as solid state memory. What there is, memory is simply experience that the brain has encoded in a particular way based on the observer you are and based on the emotional state. And as you keep pulling it up, everything changes. That memory changes based on emotion, based on observer. What I'm doing is we're finding experience of when you have been challenged and you did not know the outcome. But in that particular case, pushed up against the wall, you found a way out and landed on better ground. What I do is I recognize that these emotional qualities, these traits, are actual burned into circuitry, and I'm finding a way for you to awaken the energy of that emotional state. Because what I know is when that energy of that emotional state is awakened, we have a feeling. Feeling is the chemistry of the emotion in the body. And it just so happens it is that chemistry, either cortisol or whatever, that creates the mind that you take to trading. Very powerful technique. You still have the challenges of uncertainty, okay? You still have the challenges of uncertainty, okay? But you're no longer trying to control outcome. What you're doing, like the surfer, is you're learning how to control the one thing that you can control. The mind that you bring into the moment of performance. Friends, this is the edge, and this is the golden child, the gift of emotional intelligence. And most of the traders I know who do this don't look at their P&L statement that's flashing up on their screen all the time, because what that's doing is getting them out of the here and now and pushing them into the future. Oh my God, I might be losing. Oh my God, I'm winning. Look at me, look at me. You don't want that. That's euphoria or fear, and you do not want that emotional state influencing your performance. You want discipline and partiality controlling the performance of managing probability. That's what you want, friends. This is the edge. And when you do that, what you do is you end up in a state of flow. It feels effortless. Suddenly one person wrote me the other day and says, Randy, my trading has radically changed. I actually now am getting fairly bored with trading. I know that my job, and she was a very big-time perfectionist and had problems with that, says, I know that I can't control outcome. I know that I can control my performance, though. And if I do that, I know what's going to be delivered. I now can see long-term. You're seeing a person who has morphed from short-term perfectionist thinking of I have to win to control things to the long-term going, I have an edge as long as I maintain discipline and partiality. Big deal, man. The truth is, in the moment of performance, the future has not arrived yet. The past is gone. And all there is the moment of execution. Friends, that is really powerful. So I want you to really think about what you're next. First of all, begin to really ask yourself, am I really serious about becoming a successful trader? Am I serious enough not just to learn book knowledge? Am I serious enough to learn inner knowledge? Am I willing to confront myself? Am I willing to change me so that I can actually grow the potential within me as a trader? I want you to really ask that, because I find, to be honest with you, a lot of traders are not willing to change themselves. They want the world to change to fit their confirmations, and it's not going to happen. So the first thing is, depending on where you are, if you just started trading for the first couple years, what I invite you to do is go to my website, get my free book. It's a PDF book. It's one of the first things that's sat there. Get it, read it. It's 160 pages long. It's a good read on the psychology of trading. Okay? The videos, there's 30, there's only 40 of them out there now. And there's God knows how many other articles that are accessible from my website. Lots and lots of stuff that you can review, learn from. And what I would do is say, take your there's a lot of reading and just what I call mental masturbation, of where if I only learn enough, I'm just still on this learning thing. If I just feed my left brain more and more stuff. But if you want to realize that it's left brain, right brain integration, and you realize I have to develop the right brain, that's your emotional brain. What I ask you to do is consider either a group course or individual course. And if you're really serious, a consult with me, okay? And what I would really prefer you do is get my book first, Mindful Trading, because people who get a consult with me get a lot more out of the consult if they read the book first. They have a lot better questions, and they begin to know how to use their time with me more effectively. And just a quick description on the group course. It's coming up really soon. And that group course uses a virtual classroom that is got a lot of information on it. It's built around 5 group sessions with me over a period of 10 weeks. And you learn the basics of everything that I've just talked about. Okay? It's highly accelerated. And the thing is, it's no matter what time zone you're in, the virtual classroom is available to you 24/7. The group classes are recorded so that you have access to them if you miss them. And we get a lot of, we have a lot of business in Asia, Australia, Europe, different time zones in the United States, and a lot of people, they rarely show up for the group course, but they've got all the materials that allow them to be taking it as if it's live, and they're working it, and you end up learning emotional regulation skills, mindfulness. You start learning about the internal dialogue, how it's blowing you up. You learn about the incredible, powerful, heroic nature living within you, waiting to be tapped. And at the end, what you're learning how to do is put together a psychological plan. That's your graduation present. Powerful thing, and it's cheap. We have it at $11.95, and it's payable over 10 weeks at $239. It's really cool. If you do before the 20th, we're going to give you a $200 gift, and it's a webinar that we did focused on emotional regulation. It's great. I encourage that. At the same time, if you're sitting there, and if I were in a situation where, like, if I were trying to hit the threshold so that I got into the top group at this place, and if I had the assets behind me, I'd take the individual course. It is enormously comprehensive. It is very personal, and it gets into the depth of your fears and about how to reorganize them, and you have a personal guide. And probably the biggest thing is that it comes with 10 consults with me on Skype. I mean, we're just face-to-face, and we're looking at a very powerful course. No matter what you do, my hope for you is that you find prosperity, both interpersonally and in your trading. That's the real key. And Eddie, if there are questions, have them write them in, and I guess you're going to announce them to me, and I will think every question comes from you. So, you there?
I am here and ready to go. Yes, we do have questions, my friend. Just before I get to the questions, those courses, if you have time or Dolores has time, send me that information, and I'll pass it out to our fellow traders here. Group course, the one-on-one course, anything on that, and like I said, I'll make sure that they have access to it.
Okay, I will. Well, I'm going to say this out loud because I have earphones on and Dolores can't hear me. But I'll have Dolores send you information on the group course and the individual course, and I'll have them send them to you so you can post them.
Fantastic.
Okay, she's nodded it. She's got it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
First question's from G-Flow. There's an old saying in the industry: "Don't get married to a position." But my take on that is that traders don't get married to their position. Rather, they get married to their belief system. Being in a position is the residual effect of acting on the belief that tells you this trade will work. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, I know plenty of people who understand market structure really well, and they take a position, and they're in that position, and if that market structure maintains as they thought it were within their things, they're going to ride that position. The moment that it starts getting out of whack, suddenly when what they thought was going to happen is no longer happening, they are divorced from that position, and they're cutting their losses as soon as they can because they realize that their best guess didn't work very well. You know, it's kind of one of those things where if what you thought was not right, if what you thought was right isn't, then most likely the exact opposite. So what I'm saying is, yeah, you can be married to position up to the moment where you see the position is no longer valid. And you have to be in that awareness where this is all, you know, when you're looking at a market structure and you're looking at a methodology, you're looking at something that has a probability of working. You're not seeing something that is, by definition, going to work. So, you know, marriage is, in that particular case, I would say that there is marriage can be kind of an open marriage. As long as it maintains structure of your methodology, then yeah, I understand that you would stay married to that position. But what happens often in trading is, as you will know, is that the market structure that you're using to have placed your risk falls apart. And if you want to go down with the ship, you can. But the thing is your structure's broken down. And I know people who have their rules saying when market structure breaks down, I'm getting out of the trade even if I don't hit my stop. So that would be my position on that.
All right, next question is from Q-Tips. Question, short
Q-Tip, I love these names.
Short or long term, what effect would a beta blocker have on this fear effect? And Q-Tip says, thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you, Q-Tip. What I'll say is this, is that understand drugs, okay? Drugs change physiology, okay? Once you realize that drugs change the physiology of an emotion. Drugs do not change the belief system of the emotion. So whether or not it's beta blocker, no matter what it's an SSRI or whatever, what you're looking at is physiological management of your biology. At the bottom, though, is the belief system, and no drug is going to get at the belief system. That's something that only you, this thing I call the observer, and some hard emotional lifting is going to do. So that would be my answer on that.
Okay. Scrolling down here, let's see here. Question from Trader Sean. Should the orphan be helped or controlled? Or what would be the best way to manage the fears that the orphan is concerned with?
Okay, that's interesting. First of all, this person has more than a mere acquaintance with my work, is that people who work with me, they work with me on a couple different levels. They learn the emotional regulation work. They learn mindfulness, and when they learn the structure of the mind that I teach, I use a Jungian archetypal language to describe the elements of mind. And one of those, and archetypes are simply emotional programs burned into circuitry that are there because of the survival value that they've given us over eons of time. And it just so happens that fear in archetypal language is called orphan. So what happens when you work with me, we will call your fears, we will call that orphan. And we can call it amygdala, we can call it all sorts of things. But I have found the poetic device orphan to really nail the emotional resonance with fear. What happens is a lot of people try to control orphan, and what happens is people don't recognize that orphan anatomically is your amygdala. And the amygdala is the seat of your fear and anger, and also your attachment, I might add. And if it gets disturbed, what will happen, it will simply hijack higher order thinking. So trying to control orphan is like trying to control that mild-mannered guy that becomes the Hulk. You know that? When you really try to control him and you try to compress him, suddenly he just grows into this thing that's indestructible and very dangerous. That's what happens with orphan, is that if you try to control it, you're trying to control something with your left brain that is 50 million years old, okay? And it is enormously primitive, and it simply easily hijack logical thinking. So the thing is you do not attack, you do not avoid this orphan nature. What you do is you approach it with self-compassion. Okay, that would be called caregiver in Jungian jargon. And it just so happens when you have compassion, that does not mean pity. It does not mean that you don't have discipline. It just means that your approach is that you approach that fearful part of the self from compassion rather than being a mean ass. Okay? And it just so happens that the antidote to fear is not courage. It's not discipline. It is compassion. That has been proven. And I have a deep history of where I used to be lead therapist in a level 3 facility for kids who could not be maintained in public schools due to mental illness. And there was a lot of restraints that went on there. And I had my behavioral management technicians, otherwise known as bouncers, big guys who've been around a lot of gyms. What happens, I would not allow them to restrain a kid from anger, control. The moment that we saw that, including myself, by the way, is that we had to constrain the kid with compassion. I mean, it was discipline. I mean, we were going to control him if he cannot control himself, but we were going to do it from compassion. And our restraints in 1 year went down by 75%. So you can see very point blank that trying to control the orphan nature is what we were recognizing. All these kids were acting from fear. And this is the only way they knew how to deal. And by bringing compassion to it, the kids cool down a lot faster, and you could work with them a lot better rather than trying to control them, because you can't control these kids like that. So the main thing is what you're doing is it's almost like you're becoming a kind, benevolent teacher that's highly disciplined, and you're reteaching this part of yourself that didn't know how to deal with the unknown very well. You're teaching it new skills together to go into the unknown. That's what you're doing. You're not trying to control it at all. That just does not work. That's a setup for sabotage. So that would be my answer.
All right. I think we got just a couple more questions. You got time here?
Sure.
Okay. Eric's question. Which institutions have you consulted or trained traders for?
Gosh, different parts. BlackRock, JP Morgan, Millennium Partners. Who else? .72. And I will have done numbers in Hong Kong, in China, and London. Also, I can't remember all the names.
All right.
But those are the ones that I've worked a good bit with.
And thank you, Dolores. You got your badges there.
Yes, she has. She's my memory bank.
All right. I think that's going to be it, but I do... Joey V has a question here, and then I've got a comment for you.
Okay.
How do you start to control fear under pressure?
How do you start controlling fear? The first thing is you learn skills that will allow you to do that. Okay? And that's the breathing, and that's the relaxation skills. And then you don't keep them in the yoga studio. Like if you're taking my coursework, what you're doing is you're doing all these guided meditations where they're Basically, you're learning how to do it as a skill. You're very relaxed. Here's your breathing, and you're training your body to breathe in a different way. And then what you're doing is I go through a number of stress inoculation modules of where I'm having you imagine the stress, okay? And you're seeing like a thought stopping, like I use a stop sign, see it flash in your mind, and it goes to breathing and stuff like that. Then what happens is that you also begin to I have it would be called a journal, but I have these act logs that you keep, that as you're going through the trade day, what you're doing is you become anticipating. You see the markers. You see the markers that you particularly have about emotional arousal, and believe me, if you videotape yourself, they're just like clear as day. You'll see this fixation you have with the screen. You'll see the tension in your eyes and your fists, and you'll feel your heart accelerate. And you'll be able to start saying, okay, now that I know that those are the markers I have of emotional arousal, I'm going to start interrupting them. And that's where the breathing, going from, and if you're in one of these states, you're either breathing to the top of your lungs or not breathing at all, and you are intentionally relaxing muscles. You're intentionally breathing diaphragmatically, and what you're doing is you're taking the gasoline that you've been pouring on that emotional fire, you're taking it away, and it's calming it down. That's the first piece, okay? The second piece is after you learn this language and you begin to understand how to use it, you're beginning to recognize the orphan nature within you feels overwhelmed, feels as though that it's not going to make it, and it needs for you and your committee of the mind to be able to approach it from a very different mind. You have to bring the compassion to calm it down, but you also have to convince it that your discipline and your impartiality do in fact give you an edge. And that's a whole process, and that's why my group course lasts 2 months, and it's why my individual course lasts for 3 or 4 months, because it's not going to happen because you hear some words spoken out of my mouth today and you just go apply it and it magically happens. It is a process that you learn, and you begin to see step by step that you're getting more and more control over your emotional nature as you move in. But that control does not mean denying the emotion. It means turning toward the emotion, controlling the intensity, and getting at the belief system that keeps triggering that particular emotional response under the conditions of uncertainty. I hope that makes sense to you. That's the way I teach it. So.
All right, Rand, and our friend Q-Tip wanted to just post another comment here. Mr. Howell, honestly, I am incredibly impressed by your work. And asking a question after reading your PDF seems silly. That's because it's understandable information. But as you know, putting into practice is the difficult part. I can understand how there would be a few questions for you, but incredible value from you. Thank you again.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Well, Rand, I'd like to thank you from our community. I'd like to thank you from me, the broadcaster. And like I said, once you get that information together, let us know. I know that we've also talked about down the road getting together for shorter segments. So maybe possibly we can put our heads together for that and figure something out that's going to help the community and definitely fill those courses up for you.
Well, those courses are there for people who really truly have come to recognize that there are several places that give really good left brain training, and it just absolutely stupefies me why trading organizations don't recognize that right brain and left brain have to be trained together, whether or not you like it or not. And so, it's what a trader really has to do for themselves. It's just simply part of the education. They realize that they're going to have to do this one way or the other. And it just so happens that, my work has survived over about a period of about 20, 25 years, and it's not rooted in academia. It's rooted for me working with violent criminals, violent prisoners, and at-risk youth, and being able to have groups of actually really exploring this and recognizing most of what you learn in your graduate school just simply doesn't work in the real world, and you have to start from ground zero. and you build up, and suddenly you have a system that with work, anybody, and I had to work it with myself, and if I can change, anybody can change. That's basically it. I'm a user of my own products. So there you go.
All right. Well, Rand, once again, thank you very much. Have a fantastic weekend, and until we talk again, keep that positive mental attitude you have. It's very nice to have you here, and it's always good to talk to you, even when we're not on the air.
There you go.
All right.
And even when you're coaching us on how to figure out how to use your system. There you go.
What are friends for? Okay.
There it is. There it is.
All right.
There it is.
Rand.
Right. Eddie, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir, and wish Dolores the best, and we'll talk to you very shortly.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. And good night, everybody, or good day, or good afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.